The Etheric Double, The Health Aura of Man by A.E. Powell affords the individual who is interested in knowing about the subtler aspects of the human body as it pertains to the esoteric wisdom of how the Fohat, or the energizing power that connects logos with objective matter, acting as a link between spirit and matter, and in a sense, describing the energy body, how it comes to be, and its various components, which includes the aura and chakras, also known as the energy centers. Welcome, I am Daisy, your hostess. I'm inviting you on this 3-video chapter series of this book, which will go into many details of a topic that, to date, fills up volumes and volumes of books. While the etheric double may not be a term familiar to many, yet people have discussed aura for centuries, which is a term that many of us are familiar with, and its origins trace back to ancient Greek philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, who used the term to describe a luminous emanation around divine or virtuous beings. It's not a new concept. Going back to ancient cultures, the earliest disc-shaped halos appeared in the religious art of ancient Iran around the 4th century BC, possibly first as a distinguishing feature of the sun deity Mithra. In an article by Matthew Wilson titled The Halo, a Symbol That Spread Around the World, he wrote, and I will quote, "Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, and Greek mythology are usually regarded as utterly distinct religions, largely defined by their differences, but if you just look at them, you will see a symbol that connects them all, the halo." End quote. The concept of the halo evolved through various spiritual and philosophical traditions, with the word aura specifically referring to a holy figure's head being used in 19th century spiritualist circles to describe that subtle energy field around a person, expressing their glory or divinity. It has been conjectured that it could have originally been a type of crown motif. Others say that it may actually have been a symbol of a divine aura actually emanating from the mind of a deity. Or perhaps it was none of those, just could have been a simple decorative embellishment. I'd like to know your thoughts on that, so please do make sure to hit the like button and leave a comment and let me know you stopped by. Now, as a point of interest, the concept of the human aura has roots in Eastern traditions, including Hinduism and Buddhism, that date back thousands of years, back to those ancient Indian texts, which laid the groundwork for the modern concept of an aura through philosophies involving subtle bodies and life force energy. The Vedas, which are ancient scriptures, contain the earliest records of energy centers or chakras, as well as the concept of prana, which the author will talk about in this book, which is pretty much the vital life force that flows through the body. Having mentioned that, the author will also introduce Sanskrit words, maintaining the integrity of the original meaning of the words. I don't speak Sanskrit, yet being bilingual, I do understand the nuance that sometimes some things are best preserved in the spirit of its original language. Also, the modern Western concept of a human aura was introduced in the early 1900s, popularized by C.W.Leadbeater, so do make sure to circle back to my playlist for his book titled The Chakras. Before we get into the reading, I'd like to share one more point regarding one of the topics discussed in the first few chapters, which has to do with the sympathetic system, considered in both esoteric and spiritual traditions to be directly connected with astral centers, as the author is going to describe. While this idea is not established to be the case in medical and scientific circles, in esoteric anatomy, the astral body is understood to be that energy body that interacts with the physical body, and the astral centers, also known the chakras, and those are the key energy hubs. Keep in mind that scientifically, the sympathetic nervous system connects to the body through a chain of neurons that originate in the spinal cord and extend to target organs like muscles and glands. Yes, the sympathetic nervous system is directly connected to the lymphatic system, and they have a bidirectional communication system. The sympathetic nervous system innervates primary and secondary lymphoid organs like lymph nodes, spleen, and thymus, and its stimulation releases norepinephrine, which modulates immune cell activity. Very, very important system. I provide you with additional links from my research for this introduction, and one of them is titled Anatomy, Automatic Nervous System from the National Library of Medicine, that goes into more detail on the science side, right? Yet, none of traditional science still, to this day, can answer the question of what animates a human, which has been explored across philosophy, theology, and science with no single universally accepted answer. And this is why we have the Tower of Babel, the different branches, philosophy, science, and what do we have also? Religion. So all these are trying to communicate, where did we come from? What animates us? Each of these branches are like roads leading to the same destination with different perspectives or approach. Take science. It emphasizes on evidence-based reasoning, recognizes the limits of current knowledge, and aims for results that can be verified through observation and experimentation. Thing with that is that as new information is acquired, it's very hard to bring the whole of humanity into this new knowledge. So that's why we're all so staggered, right? But then again, you take philosophy, which involves examining fundamental questions about life, the self, and the world. And it uses a variety of approaches like reasoning and sensory experience, rationalism, that logical thinking, or existentialism. These different lenses open up wisdom to gain a deeper understanding of complex issues. And then we have religion, while often relies on tradition and dogma, authority and scripture to answer questions about purpose of the supernatural, which are beyond scientific measure. So things are interpreted differently depending on the framework. So from that scientific perspective, what animates humans? Many scientists say that it is a complex web of biological and chemical processes. But if you ask further, what is it that provides the spark? You will hear the sound of crickets. If you are a seeker, you will find some answers in this book that will supplement your current toolbox, and you will discover how important also the spleen is. I have kept you waiting long enough, and we will now go ahead and turn the page. The Etheric Double, The Health Aura of Man by A.E. Powell. Introduction. This book has been compiled with the object of presenting to the student of occultism a coherent synthesis of all, or nearly all, the information regarding the etheric double and other closely allied phenomena which has been given to the world through the medium of modern theosophical and psychical research literature. This information is scattered over a very large number of books and articles, some 40 of which the compiler has consulted, a list of these being given at the end of this document. The writer wishes it understood that his work is a compilation, nothing more. All he has done is to collect and arrange the material which others have provided. There are many advantages in this method of study. In these busy days, few have the leisure, even if they possess the inclination, to search through scores of books for scattered item of knowledge, and then to weld them into a coherent whole. It is better, therefore, for one to do this work, that others may benefit and save their own time and labor. The work of the compiler brings to light many new relationships between fragments culled from diverse sources, and under his hand the mosaic gradually forms itself into a pattern. His work, necessarily intensive, recalls to notice many isolated and often forgotten facts, which may be of little value or interest considered individually, but which collectively constituted a substantial and useful array. Finally, the picture which the compiler presents not only displays in orderly fashion what is known today, but by its very orderliness reveals where our knowledge is incomplete. Recognizing such gaps in our knowledge, other investigators may perhaps turn their attention in those directions and so make the picture more nearly complete. The compiler has throughout used his best endeavor to present the material he has gathered with scrupulous exactitude. In very many cases, he has employed the actual words adapted or abridged where necessary to the context of the authors he has consulted. But, not to make the text burdensome and unsightly with large numbers of inverted commas, these have been consistently omitted, in order, however, that students may, if they wish, refer to the original sources of information. The references have been provided in abbreviated long form. The compiler would be grateful to any students who would call his attention to any inaccuracies, to any omissions of material which maybe have overlooked. The diagrams and charts contained in the text are original. They are intended to be purely diagrammatic and in no sense pictures of the actual phenomena they attempt to illustrate. Signed, A. E. Powell. Chapter 1. General Description. Every student of occultism is familiar with the fact that man possesses several bodies or vehicles through which he is enabled to express himself in the various planes of nature, physical, astral, mental, and so forth. The occultists find that physical matter exists in 7 grades or orders of density: atomic, subatomic, superetheric, etheric, gaseous, liquid, solid. Particles of these grades enter into the composition of the physical body. The latter, however, has 2 well-marked divisions: the dense body, composed of solids, liquids, and gases, and the etheric body, or double, as it is frequently called, consisting of the 4 finer grades of physical matter. It will be our purpose in these chapters to study this etheric double, its nature, appearance, functions, its relationship to the other vehicles, its connection with prana, or vitality, its birth, growth, and decay, its connection with certain methods of healing, with mesmerism, with mediumship, and materializations, the powers it can be made to exercise, and a host of miscellaneous etheric phenomena with which it is connected. Briefly, we shall find that the etheric double, while necessary to the life of the physical body, is not, properly speaking, a separate vehicle of consciousness, that it receives and distributes the vital force which emanates from the sun and is thus intimately connected with physical health, that it possesses certain chakrams or 4 centers of its own, each with its distinct function, that upon the action of etheric matter mainly depends the memory of the dream life, that it plays an important part in determining the kind of physical vehicle which an incarnating ego will receive, that, like the physical body, it dies and decays in due course, releasing the soul for the next stage in its cyclic journey, that it is especially associated with what is known as vital or magnetic healing, and also with mesmerism, whether for purpose of healing, anesthesia, or trance, that it is the principal factor concerned in seance room phenomena such as the movement of objects, production of raps and other sounds, and materializations of all kinds, that the development of etheric faculties confers new powers and reveals many etheric phenomena which are beyond the experience of most men, that by the use of the matter of the etheric body objects may be magnetized, much as living beings may be mesmerized, and finally, that the etheric body provides the material out of which the substance known as ectoplasm is formed. The etheric double has been given a variety of names. In early theosophical literature, it was often called the astral body, the astral man, or the linga sharira. In all later writings, however, none of these terms are applied to the etheric double, as they belong properly to the body composed of astral matter, the body of Kama of the Hindus. In reading the Secret Doctrine, therefore, and other books of the older literature, the student must be on his guard not to confuse the two quite distinct bodies known today as the etheric double and the astral body. The correct Hindu name for the etheric double is Pranamaya Kosha, or vehicle of prana. In German, it is known as doppelganger. After death, when separated from the dense physical body, it is known as wraith, and has also been called the phantom, or apparition, or churchyard ghost. In Raja Yoga, the etheric double and the dense body together are known as the Slopadi, or lowest Upadi of Atma. Every solid, liquid, and gaseous particle of the physical body is surrounded with an etheric envelope, hence the etheric double, as its name implies. It is a perfect duplicate of the dense form. In size, it projects about 1/4 of an inch beyond the skin. The etheric aura, however, or health aura, as it is frequently called, projects normally several inches beyond the skin. This will be further described later. It is important to notice that the dense body and the etheric double vary together as to their quality. Hence, one who sets himself deliberately to purify his dense body at the same time automatically refines its etheric counterpart. Into the composition of the etheric double must enter something of all the different grades of etheric matter, but the proportions may vary greatly and are determined by several factors such as the race, subrace, and the type of man, as well as his individual karma. As yet, the only information which the compiler has been able to gather regarding the particular properties and functions of each of the 4 grades of etheric matter is the following. 1. Etheric, the medium of ordinary current, electricity, and of sound. 2. Super etheric, the medium of light. 3. Subatomic, the medium of the finer forms of electricity. And 4. Atomic, the medium of the transmission of thought from brain to brain. The following chart is stated in Theosophy of May 1922 by F.T. Pierce to be probably correct. The chart shows E1 through E4. E1, occult chemistry, atomic. The physics is electronic, the example is an electron. E2, the occult chemistry is subatomic, the physics is positive nucleus, the example is the alpha particle. E3, the occult chemistry is super etheric, the physics is neutralized nucleus, and the example is neutron. E3, the occult chemistry is etheric, the physics is atomic, and the example is nascent N. And the chart also shows under the nascent N, it shows atomic H. Under the occult chemistry, gaseous, the physics is the molecular gas, and the example is H2, N2, or gaseous compounds. In appearance with the etheric double is a pale violet gray or blue-gray, faintly luminous. In appearance, the etheric double is a pale violet gray or blue-gray, faintly luminous, and coarse or fine in texture, according as the dense physical body is coarse or fine. The etheric double has 2 main functions. Firstly, it absorbs prana, or vitality, and distributes this to the whole body, as we shall see in detail presently. Secondly, it acts as an intermediary or bridge between the dense physical body and the astral body, transmitting the consciousness of physical sense contacts through the etheric brain to the astral body, and also transmitting consciousness from the astral and higher levels down into the physical brain and the nervous system. In addition, the etheric double develops within itself certain centers by means of which the man is able to cognize the etheric world and its host of etheric phenomena. These powers or faculties will also be described in due course. It is important to recognize that the etheric double, being merely a part of the physical body, is not normally capable of acting as a separate vehicle of consciousness in which a man can live or function. It has only a diffuse consciousness belonging to its parts and has no mentality, nor does it readily serve as a medium of mentality when disjoined from the dense counterpart. As it is a vehicle not of mental consciousness but of prana or vitality, its dislocation from the dense particles to which it conveys the life currents is disturbing and unhealthy. In normal healthy persons, in fact, the separation of the etheric double from the dense body is a matter of difficulty, and the double is unable to move away from the body to which it belongs. In persons known as physical or materializing mediums, the double is comparatively easily detachable, and its etheric matter forms the basis of many phenomena of materialization, which will be dealt with more fully in a later chapter. The double may be separated from the dense physical body by accident, death, anesthetics such as ether or gas, or mesmerism. The double being the connecting link between the brain and the higher consciousness, the forcible extrusion of it from the dense physical body by anesthetics necessarily produces anesthesia. Further than this, the etheric matter thus forced out usually wraps itself around the astral body and dulls the consciousness of that vehicle also. Hence, after the effects of anesthetics have worn off, there is usually no memory in the brain consciousness of the time spent in the astral vehicle. The method and consequences of withdrawal of etheric matter by mesmerism will be dealt with more fully in the chapter specially devoted to the purpose. In conditions of weak health or nervous excitement, the etheric double may also, in great part, be extruded from its dense counterpart. The latter then becomes very dully conscious or entranced, according to the lesser or greater amount of the etheric matter extruded. Separation of the double from the dense body is generally accompanied by a considerable decrease of vitality in the latter, the double becoming more vitalized as the energy in the dense body diminishes. In Posthumous Humanity, Colonel Olcott says, "When the double is projected by a trained expert, even the body seems torpid and the mind in a brown study or dazed state. The eyes are lifeless in expression, the heart and lung actions feeble, and often temperature much lowered. It is very dangerous to make any sudden noise or burst into a room under such circumstances, for the double being by instantaneous reaction drawn back into the body, the heart convulsively palpitates, and death may be caused." So intimate, in fact, is the connection between the etheric and the dense bodies that an injury inflicted on the etheric double will appear as a lesion on the dense body, this being an instance of the curious phenomena known as repercussion. It is well known that repercussion can also occur in the case of the astral body, and injury to the latter under certain circumstances reproducing itself in the physical body. It seems probable, however, that repercussion can occur only in the case of a perfect materialization, where the form is both visible and tangible, and not when it is one, tangible though not visible, or two, visible though not tangible. It must be borne in mind that the above applies only where matter of the etheric double is used for the materialized form. When the materialization is formed of matter from the circambient ether, an injury to the form could affect the physical body by repercussion, no more than an injury to a marble statue could injure the man himself. It must also be borne in mind that etheric matter, though invisible to ordinary sight, is still purely physical and can therefore be affected by cold and heat and also powerful acids. Persons who have lost a limb by amputation sometimes complain that they can feel pain at the extremities of the amputated limb. Example, at the place where the limb used to be. This is due to the fact that the etheric portion of the limb is not removed with the dense physical portion, but can still be seen in its place by clairvoyant sight, and therefore under suitable stimulus, sensations can be aroused in this etheric limb and transmitted to the consciousness. There are a large number of other phenomena connected with the etheric double, its extrusion from the dense body, its emanations, and so forth, but these can be dealt with more conveniently and satisfactorily at a later stage, after we have studied the nature and methods of working prana or vitality. Chapter 2. Prana or vitality. It is known to occultists that there are at least 3 separate and distinct forces which emanate from the sun and reach our planet. There may be countless other forces for all we know to the contrary, but at any rate we know of these 3. They are 1. Fohat or electricity, 2. Prana or vitality, 3. Kundalini or serpent fire. Fohat or electricity comprises practically all the physical forces of which we know, all of which are convertible into one another, such as electricity, magnetism, light, heat, sound, chemical affinity, motion, and so forth. Prana or vitality is a vital force, the existence of which is not yet formally recognized by orthodox Western scientists, though probably a few of them suspect it. Kundalini or serpent fire is a force known as yet only to very few. It is entirely unknown and unsuspected by orthodox Western science. These 3 forces remain distinct, and none of them can at this level be converted into either of the others. This is a point of great importance, which the students should clearly grasp. Further, these 3 forces have no connection with the 3 great outpourings. The outpourings are definite efforts made by the solar deity. Foha, Prana, and Kundalini, on the other hand, seem rather the results of his life, his qualities in manifestation without any visible effort. Since this document was compiled, the Chakras by C.W.Leadbeater has appeared. In the Chakras, it is stated that the 3 forces mentioned are connected with the outpourings as follows. The first outpouring from the 3rd logos is the primary force which manufactured the chemical elements. This appears to be Fohat. The second outpouring from the 2nd logos has Prana as one of its aspects. Kundalini is a further development on the ascending arc of the first outpouring. Prana is a Sanskrit word derived from pra, forth, and an, to breathe, move, live. Thus, pra-an, prana, means to breathe forth, life breath, or life energy being the nearest English equivalence of the Sanskrit term. As in Hindu thought, there is but one life, one consciousness. Prana has been used for the Supreme Self, the energy of the One, the life of the Logos. Hence, life on each plane may be spoken of as the prana of the plane, prana becoming the life breath in every creature. I am prana. Prana is life, says Indra, the great diva who stands at the head of the hierarchy of the life in the lower world. Prana here clearly means the totality of the life forces. In the Mundakopanishad, it is stated that from Brahman, the One, comes prana, or life. Prana is also described as Atma in its outgoing activity. From Atma, this prana is born, Prajnopanishad. Shankara says that prana is Kriya Shakti, the Shakti of doing, not of knowing. It is classed as one of the 7 elements which correspond to the 7 regions of the universe, the 7 sheaths of Brahman, and so forth. These are prana, manas, ether, fire, air, water, earth. The Hebrews speak of the breath of life, which they call nephesh, breathed into the nostrils of Adam. Nephesh, however, is not strictly speaking prana alone, but prana combined with the next principle, kama. These together make the vital spark that is the breath of life in man, in beast or insect, a physical, material life. Translated into more Western terms, prana on the physical plane is best described as vitality, as the integrating energy that coordinates the physical molecules, cells, etc., and holds them together as a definite organism. It is the life breath within the organism, the portion of the universal life breath appropriated by a given organism during the period of bodily existence that we speak of as a life. Were it not for the presence of prana, there could be no physical body as an integral whole, working as one entity. Without prana, the body would be nothing more than a collection of independent cells. Prana links up and connects these into one complex whole, playing along the branches and meshes of the life web, that shimmering golden web of inconceivable fineness and delicate beauty, formed out of a single thread of Buddhic matter, a prolongation of the Sutratma, within the meshes of which the coarser atoms are built together. Prana is absorbed by all living organisms, a sufficient supply of it seeming to be a necessity of their existence. It is not therefore in any sense a product of life, but the living animal, plant, etc. are its products. Too great an exuberance of it in the nervous system may lead to disease and death. Just as little leads to exhaustion and ultimately death. H.P. Blavatsky compares prana, the active power producing all vital phenomena, to oxygen, the supporter of combustion, the life-giving gas, the active chemical agent in all organic life. A comparison is also drawn between the etheric double, the inert vehicle of life, and nitrogen, an inert gas which oxygen is mixed to adapt the latter for animal respiration, and which also enters largely into all organic substances. The fact that the cat is preeminently endowed with prana has given rise to the popular idea of the cat having 9 lives, and appears to have been indirectly connected with the reasons for this animal being regarded in Egypt as sacred. On the physical plane, prana builds up all minerals and is the controlling agent in the chemico-physiological changes in protoplasm, which lead to differentiation and the building of the various tissues of bodies and plants, animals, and men. They show its presence by the power of responding to stimuli. The blending of astral with physical prana creates nerve matter, which is fundamentally the cell, and which gives the power to feel pleasure and pain. The cells develop into fibers as the result of thought, the prana pulsating along those fibers being composed of physical, astral, and mental prana. Within the physical plane, atom themselves, the prana courses along the spirally. In our chain in the first round, the monadic life flowing through the spiritual triad, Atma, Buddhi, Manas, vivifies the first set of spirale, and these are used by pranic currents which affect the dense physical body. In the second round, the monad vivifies the second set of spirale, and through them runs the prana connected with the etheric double. In the third round, the third set of spirale is awakened by the monadic life, and through them courses the kamic prana, which makes sensation of pleasure and pain possible. In the fourth round, the monadic life awakens the fourth set of spirale, which becomes the vehicle for the kama manasic prana, thus making the atoms fit to be built into a brain for thought. This is as far as normal humanity has progressed. Certain yoga practices, in the use of which great caution is required, lest injury should be inflicted on the brain, bring about the development of the fifth and sixth set of spirale, which serve as channels for higher forms of consciousness. The seven spirale in the atom must not be confused with the whorls, of which there are 10, 3 coarser and 7 finer. In the 3 coarser whorls flow currents of different electricities, whilst the 7 finer whorls respond to the etheric waves of all kinds, sounds, light, heat, etc. The secret doctrine speaks of prana as the invisible or fiery lives which supply the microbes with vital constructive energy, thus enabling them to build the physical cells, the size of the smallest bacterium relatively to that of a fiery life, being as that of an elephant to the tiniest infusoria. Every visible thing in the universe was built by such lives, from conscious and divine primordial man down to the unconscious agents that construct matter. By the manifestation of prana, the spirit which is speechless appears as the speaker. The whole constructive vitality is the universe and in man, is thus summed up as prana. An atom is also a life, but the consciousness is that of the third logos. A microbe is a life, the consciousness being that of the second logos, appropriated and modified by the planetary logos and the spirit of the earth. The secret doctrine also speaks of a fundamental dogma of occult science, that the sun is the storehouse of vital force, and that from the sun issue those life currents which thrill through space, as through the organisms of every living thing on earth. Paracelsus thus referred to prana: the whole of the microcosm is potentially contained in the liquor vitae, a nerve fluid in which is contained the nature, quality, character, and essence of all beings. Paracelsus also spoke of it as the archeus. Dr. B. Richardson, FRS, wrote of it as a nervous ether. The Nismuth willow leaves are the reservoirs of the solar vital energy, the real sun being hidden behind the visible sun and generating the vital fluid which circulates throughout our system in a 10-year cycle. The old Aryan sang that Surya, hiding behind his yogi, robes his head that no one could see. The dress of the Indian ascetics is dyed a red-yellow hue with pinkish patches on it and is intended rudely to represent the prana in man's blood, the symbol of the vital principle in the sun, or what is now called the chromosphere, the rose-colored region. The nerve centers themselves are, of course, provided by the food sheath, or dense body, but prana is the controlling energy which acts through the nerve centers, making the food sheath obedient, and fashioning it for the purpose which the I, seated in the higher intelligence, demands. It is important to note that although the nerves are in the physical body, it is not the physical body as such which has the power of feeling. As a sheath, the physical body does not feel. It is a receiver of impressions only. The outer body receives the impact, but in its own cells does not lie the power of feeling pleasure or pain, except in a very vague, dull, and massive way, giving rise to vague, diffuse feelings, such as those of general fatigue, for example. The physical contacts are transmitted inwards by prana, and these are acute, sharp, keen, specific, quite different from the heavy, diffuse sensations deriving from the cells themselves. It is thus, in every case, prana which gives the sense activity to the physical organs and which transmits the outer vibration to the sense centers, which are situated in kama, in the sheath which is next to prana, the manomaya kosha. It is by means of the etheric double that prana runs along the nerves of the body and thus enables them to act not only as the carriers of external impacts, but also of motor force originated from within. It is the play of the pranic life currents in the etheric doubles of minerals, vegetables, and animals which awaken out of latency the astral matter involved in the structure of their atomic and molecular constituents, thus producing a thrill which enables the monad of form to draw in astral materials, which are built by nature spirits into a loosely constituted mass, the future astral body. In the mineral, astral matter is so little active that there is no perceptible working from the astral to the physical. In the higher plants, the increased astral activity affects their etheric, and through this, their dense matter. With animals, the much greater astral consciousness affects their etheric doubles, and by these etheric vibrations, the building of the nervous system, which was dimly foreshadowed only in plants, is stimulated. It is thus impulses set up by the consciousness willing to experience, which cause astral vibrations, these producing vibrations in etheric matter. The impulse thus comes from the consciousness, but the actual building of the nervous system, which the consciousness at this stage is unable to undertake, is performed by etheric nature spirits, directed by the shining ones of the third elemental kingdom and the logos working through the group soul. There appears first in the astral body a center, having the function of receiving and responding to vibrations from outside. From the center, vibrations pass to the etheric body, causing their etheric vortices, which draw into themselves dense physical particles. These eventually form a nerve cell and groups of cells, which, receiving vibrations from the outer physical world, transmit them back to the astral centers. The physical and astral centers thus acting and reacting on one another, each in consequence becoming more complicated and more effective. Out of these nerve cells, the sympathetic system is built first, by impulses, as we have seen, originating in the astral world. Later, the cerebrospinal system is constructed by impulses originating in the mental world. The sympathetic system always remains directly connected with the astral centers, but it is important to note that these astral centers are not the astral chakrams, of which we will speak later, but are merely aggregations in the astral sheath which form the beginnings of the centers which will build the organs in the physical body. The astral chakrams are not formed till a much later period in evolution. From these centers then, which are not the chakrams, 10 organs in the physical are formed, 5 to receive impressions, jnanendriyas, knowledge senses or sense centers in the brain, which eventually are connected with eyes, ears, tongue, nose, and skin, and 5 to convey vibrations from consciousness to the outer world, karmendriyas, action senses or sense centers which cause action, these being motor centers in the brain, to be connected with the sense organs in hands, feet, larynx, organs of generation, and excretion. The student must carefully note that the prana, which courses along the nerves, is quite separate and distinct from what is called a man's magnetism, or nerve fluid, which is generated within his own body. This nerve fluid, or magnetism, keeps the etheric matter circulating along the nerves, or more accurately, along a coating of ether which surrounds each nerve, much as the blood circulates through the veins, and just as the blood carries oxygen to the body, so does the nerve fluid convey prana. Furthermore, just as the particles of the dense physical body are constantly changing and being replaced by fresh particles derived from food, water, and air, so are the particles of the etheric body being constantly changed and replaced by fresh etheric particles, these being taken into the body along with the food eaten, with the air breathed, and with prana in the form known as the vitality globule, as will presently be described. Prana, or vitality, exists on all planes, physical, astral, mental, etc. Prana, the one life, is the nave to which are attached the 7 spokes of the universal wheel. From him to prana atharva, Veda 9, verse 4. We are here, however, concerned only with its appearance and methods of work in the lowest, the physical plane. It must also be noted that prana on the physical plane is sevenfold, i.e., there are 7 varieties of it. We have seen already that it's quite separate and distinct from light, heat, etc., but nevertheless its manifestation on the physical plane appears to depend upon sunlight. For when sunlight is abundant, prana also appears in abundance, and where sunlight is absent, prana also is deficient. Prana emanates from the sun and enters some of the ultimate physical atoms which float about in the Earth's atmosphere in countless myriads. Although we say that this pranic force enters the physical atom, it does not do so from outside. It enters from a higher dimension, the 4th, and so appears to the clairvoyant as welling up with the atom. There are thus 2 forces which enter the atom from within. 1, the will force of the logos, which holds the atom together in its proper shape. 2, the pranic force. It is important to note that prana comes from the second aspect of the solar deity, whereas the will force emanates from the 3rd aspect. The effect of prana on atoms is entirely different from that of electricity, light, heat, or other expressions of Fohat. Electricity rushing through the atoms deflects them and holds them in a certain way, and also imparts to them a separate and distinct vibration rate. Any one of the variants of Fohat, such as electricity, light, or heat, cause an oscillation of the atom as a whole, an oscillation the size of which is enormous as compared with that of the atom itself, these forces, of course, acting on the atom from without. Students of occultism will be familiar with the shape and structure of the ultimate physical atom, the smallest particle of matter on the physical plane, out of combinations of which are made the various combinations we know as solid, liquid, gas, etc. In drawings in this document, therefore, these ultimate physical atoms are indicated as outlines only. The force of prana, then, radiated from the sun, enters some atoms in the atmosphere and causes them to glow. Such an atom charged with this additional life has a 6-fold power of attraction, so that it immediately draws round it 6 other atoms. These it arranges in a definite form, making what is termed in occult chemistry a hyper-meta-proto-element, a combination of matter on the subatomic subplane. This combination, however, differs from all others so far observed, in that the force which creates it and holds it together comes from the second aspect of the solar deity instead of from the 3rd. This form is known as the vitality globule and is shown in the appended drawing, which is enlarged from that on page 45 of Occult Chemistry. This little group is the exceedingly brilliant bead upon the male of positive snake in the chemical element oxygen, and it is also the heart of the central globe in radium. The globules, on account of their brilliance and extreme activity, can be seen by almost anyone who cares to look, darting about in the atmosphere in immense numbers, especially on a sunny day. The best way to see them is to face directly away from the sun and focus the eyes a few feet away with a clear sky as background. Brilliant as is the globule, it is almost colorless and may be seen compared to white light. It has already been remarked that although the force which vivifies these globules is quite different from light, it nevertheless appears to depend upon light for the power of manifestation. In brilliant sunshine, this vitality is constantly welling up afresh, and the globules are generated in incredible numbers. But in cloudy weather, there is a great diminution in the number of globules formed, and during the night the operation appears to be entirely suspended. During the night, therefore, we may be said to be living upon the stock manufactured during the previous day, and although it appears practically impossible that it should ever be entirely exhausted, that stock evidently does run low when there is a long succession of cloudy days. It is, of course, the work of the physical element to defend the body and to assimilate vitality, as will be described in detail in the next chapter, in order to recuperate the physical body. Whilst the physical body is awake, the nerves and muscles are kept tense, ready for instant action. When the body is asleep, The element lets the nerves and muscles relax and devotes himself especially to the assimilation of vitality. This accounts for the strong recuperative power of sleep, even of a momentary nap. The elemental works most successfully during the early part of the night when there is a copious supply of vitality. In the daily cycle, the supply of globules is at its lowest ebb in the small hours of the morning before sunrise, and this is one reason why so large proportion of deaths occurs during those hours. Hence, also the saying that an hour's sleep before midnight is worth two after it. Similarly, of course, the supply of prana is at a lower ebb in winter than in summer. Further, prana is poured forth not only on the physical, but also on all planes. Emotion, intellect, and spirituality will be at their best under clear skies and with the inestimable aid of sunlight. It may also be added that even the colors of etheric prana correspond to some extent to similar hues at the astral level. Hence, right feeling and clear thought react on the physical and assist the latter to assimilate prana and thus maintain vigorous health. We thus find an interesting light thrown on the intimate connection between spiritual, mental, and emotional health and the health of the physical body, and are reminded of the well-known saying of the Lord Buddha that the first step on the road to nirvana is perfect physical health. The vitality globule, once charged, remains as a subatomic element and does not appear to be subject to any change or loss of force unless and until it is absorbed by some living creature. Before proceeding to study the extremely interesting and important subject of the absorption of prana in the physical body, we must first study the mechanism in the etheric double by means of which this process is effected. Chapter 3. Force Centers. In the etheric double, as well, incidentally, as in each of our other vehicles, there are certain force centers or chakrams, as they are called in Sanskrit, this word meaning literally a wheel of revolving disc. The chakrams are situated on the surface of the double, that is about 1/4 of an inch outside the skin of the body. To clairvoyant sight, they appear as vortices or saucer-like depressions of rapidly rotating matter. The force flowing through the chakrams being essential to the life of the etheric double, everyone possesses such force centers, though the degree of their development varies considerably in individuals. Where they are undeveloped, they glow dully and the etheric particles move sluggishly, just forming the vortex necessary for the transmission of the force and no more. In developed people, on the other hand, the chakrams glow and pulsate, blazing with blinding brilliance like miniature suns. They vary in size from about 2 inches in diameter to about 6 inches. In a newborn baby, they are tiny little circles like a 3-penny piece, little hard discs scarcely moving at all and only faintly glowing. The etheric chakrams have 2 distinct functions. The first is to absorb and distribute prana or vitality to the etheric and thence to the physical body, thus keeping these alive. The second function is to bring down into the physical consciousness whatever may be the quality inherent in the corresponding astral center. It is the lack of development of the etheric centers which accounts for the failure to bring into the physical brain memory of astral experiences. Many people are fully awake and vividly conscious of the astral plane and lead active lives in their astral bodies. Diagram 3 shows a structure of force center 1, the shape, with the force center rapidly rotating. The appearance is that of a saucer-like depression or vortex in the surface of the etheric double, i.e. 1/4 inch outside the surface of the physical body. The function to convey forces from astral to etheric, and B. Similar center exists in all vehicles. When, however, they return to their sleeping physical bodies, scarcely any memory of the astral life filters through into the brain, simply because the necessary etheric bridge is not built. When the etheric centers are fully developed, there is full and continuous memory of astral experiences in the brain. There appears to be no connection between the activity or development of the etheric chakrams and moral qualities. The 2 developments are quite distinct. Although there is in the astral an astral center corresponding to each of the etheric centers, yet as the astral center is a vortex in 4 dimensions, it extends in a direction quite different from the etheric, and consequently the astral center is by no means always conterminous with the corresponding etheric center, though some part of it is always coincident. Whilst the etheric centers are always on the surface of the etheric body, the astral center is frequently in the interior of the astral body. Diagram 3 shows the structure of force center 2, inrush of vital force. The vital primary force sevenfold from the astral force wells up in center from astral, one of the 7 varieties of the vital force greatly predominant in each center. This inrush of vital force brings life to the physical body. We have already seen in chapter 2 that there are 7 varieties of prana, all of which are present in all the chakrams, but in each chakram, one of the varieties is always greatly predominant. The prana rushes into the center of each chakram from a direction at right angles to the plane of the chakram. Welling up would perhaps be a better term, as the force comes from the astral plane into the etheric. From the center of the chakram, the force then radiates at right angles to the direction from which it came, i.e., in the plane of the surface of the etheric double, in a number of directions and in straight lines. The number of directions which are similar to the spokes of a wheel is different in each chakram. Diagram 3, structure of force center 3, formation of spokes, vital primary force from astral. The primary force wells up at center and then rushes outward radially along spokes, the number of these spokes differing in each center. The spokes divide the chakram into a number of segments like the petals of a flower. Hence, in Hindu books, the chakrams are often described as resembling flowers. Now, somewhat as a bar magnet thrust into a coil of wire will set up or induce a current of electricity in the wire at right angles to the axis of the magnet, so does the primary force of prana entering the chakram set up or induce secondary forces in the plane of the chakram. These secondary forces spin around the chakram, passing over and under the spokes, much as the material of the bottom of a circular basket passes over and under the ribs which radiate from the center. Each of these secondary forces sweeping round the chakram has its own characteristic wavelength, and in addition moves not in straight lines, but in relatively large undulations, each of which is a multiple of the wavelength within it. The wavelengths are very minute, and probably some thousands of them are very minute. And probably some thousands of them are included in one undulation, though the exact proportion has not yet been determined. The general effect is shimmering and iridescent, like mother of pearl or a certain variety of Venetian glass. The chakrams are often spoken of as corresponding to certain physical organs, those organs, in fact, which are the nearest to them, but as already mentioned, the chakrams themselves are not in the interior of the body, but in the surface of the etheric double. The list of the chakrams and their names is as follows. The first chakra, nearest physical organ, base of the spine, the Sanskrit name is Muladhara. The second one, nearest physical organ, is the navel, Sanskrit name Manipura. The third nearest physical organ is the spleen, Sanskrit name is Sabdhisthana. The fourth nearest physical organ is the heart, Sanskrit name Anahata. The sixth nearest physical organ between the eyebrows, the Sanskrit name is Ajna. The seventh nearest of physical organ is top of the head, Sanskrit name is Sahasrara Brahmarandara. And then we have 8, 9, and 10, which are in the lower organs. The numbers 8, 9, and 10, connected with the lower organs of the body, are not used by students of the white magic, though there are certain schools in existence which make use of them. The dangers connected with them are so serious that we should consider their awakening as the greatest of misfortunes. The flow of vitality into or through any chakram is quite separate and distinct from the development of the chakram brought about by the awakening of Kundalini, which will be described in chapter 13. We shall now proceed to study each of the 7 chakrams in turn, examining its structure, appearance, function, and the faculties associated with it for reasons which will presently appear. It will be conveniently to commence with the 3rd center that's situated near the spleen. Chapter 4. The Spleen Center. The spleen center has 6 spokes, and therefore the same number of petals or undulations. In appearance it is specially radiant, glowing, and sun-like. This center is unique in this, that it has the all-important function of absorbing the vitality globules from the atmosphere, disintegrating them, and distributing the component atoms charged with the specialized and transmuted prana to the various parts of the body. The process will most readily be followed with the aid of diagrams numbers 4, 2, 3, and 4. This diagram 4 is the spleen center. 1. Structure. It shows the primary force from astral and the 6 spokes. General appearance radiant and sun-like. Function of astral center vitalizes the astral body, power to travel consciously. Function of etheric center vitalizes physical body, memory of astral journeys. Diagram 4, spleen center 2, absorption of vitality globules, shows the primary force from astral. The vitality globules as well are drawn into center of force center. Diagram 4, spleen center 3, decomposition of vitality globules, shows the diagram primary force from astral. Vitality globules, after being drawn into center, are decomposed, and the component particles are whirled round by the secondary forces. The vitality globules are first drawn into the spleen center when they are broken up into 7 component atoms, each atom charged with one of the 7 varieties of prana. These atoms are then caught up by the rotating secondary forces and spun round the chakram. These 7 different kinds of prana are colored thus: violet, blue, green, yellow, orange, dark red, rose red. It will be observed that the divisions are not exactly those to which we are accustomed in the solar spectrum, but resemble rather the arrangement of colors seen on higher levels in the causal, mental, and astral bodies. The indigo spectrum is divided between the violet and blue rays of prana, whilst the red of the spectrum is split up into dark red and rose red prana. Each of the 6 spokes then seizes on one variety of atom and dispatches it to the chakram, or part of the body for which it is needed. This accounts for 6 kinds of atoms only. The 7th variety, that colored rose pink, is dispatched through the hub or center of the spleen chakram itself, whence it is distributed over the whole nervous system. These rose-colored atoms are the original atoms which first drew round them the 6 others to form the globule. The atoms which bear the rose-colored prana are clearly the life of the nervous system, and it is this variety of prana which one man may give to another, as described in chapter 13. If the nerves are insufficiently supplied with this rose-colored prana, they become sensitive and intensively irritable. The patient finds himself restless, and the least noise or touch is agony to him. Instant relief may be afforded him by some healthy person flooding his nervous system with a supply of rose-colored prana. Although there are 7 distinct kinds of prana, there are only 5 main streams, as described in some Indian books, because after issuing from the spleen chakram, the blue and violet join into one stream, and the orange and dark red join into another stream. The streams leave the spleen center horizontally. Diagram 4, spleen center 4, dispersion of vitality particles. This diagram shows the wheel and the process. 1. Vitality globules are drawn into center. 2. Vitality globules are broken up into particles. 3. Vitality particles are whirled around by secondary forces. 4. Vitality particles are seized by appropriate spoke and dispatched to destination shown. And B. The rose-pink atoms are the original atoms which first drew round them 6 others to form the globule. The colors of the streams and their destinations are set out in the following table. Number 1, violet blue, destination throat center. Number 2, green, navel center and abdomen generally. Number 3, yellow, destination the heart center. Number 4, orange, dark red and some dark purple, destination base of spine center. Number 5, rose red, destination nervous system. As the various kinds of prana, charged atoms are distributed where required. The charge of prana is withdrawn from them, precisely as a charge of electricity might be withdrawn. The prana gives life to the etheric double and, through that, to the dense body, the degree of health of the parts of the body being largely determined by the volume of prana distributed. The bearing of this significant fact on the maintenance of physical vigor and the cure of disease is clearly of great importance and will be more fully considered in the section devoted to healing and mesmerism. The atoms bearing the rose-colored prana grow gradually paler as they sweep along the nerves and part with their pranic content. They are eventually discharged from the body through the pores of the skin as well as other ways, forming what is called the health aura, a pale bluish white emanation, of which a plate is given in Man, Visible and Invisible, page 128. In a man in vigorous health, the spleen does its work so generously that considerably more of the particles charged with prana are present than the man requires for his own use. These unused particles are discharged from the body in all directions through the health aura, along with the particles from which the prana has been extracted. Such a man is thus a source of health and strength to those around him, constantly, though unconsciously, shedding vitality on any who may be in his vicinity. This process may be considerably intensified by those who definitely set themselves to heal others, by mesmeric passes and otherwise, as we shall see more fully in a later chapter. In addition to these particles just mentioned, it is also well known that small particles of dense physical matter are continually being thrown off from a man's body, in insensible perspiration and in other ways. A clairvoyant sees these particles as a faint gray mist. Many of the particles are crystalline in form and therefore appear as geometrical figures. One of the commonest is that of salt or sodium chloride, which takes the form of cubes. A man, on the other hand, who is unable, for any reason, to specialize for his own use a sufficient amount of prana, frequently and also unconsciously acts as a sponge, his physical elemental drawing vitality from any sensitive person who happens to be near, to his own temporary benefit, but often to the serious injury of the victim. This phenomenon largely accounts for those feelings of weariness and languor which come over one after being near people who, not being very strong themselves, possess this unfortunate vampire-like faculty of draining others of vitality. The same thing may happen, often in an aggravated form, at spiritualist seances. The vegetable kingdom also absorbs vitality, but seems in most cases to use only a small part of it. Many trees, especially the pine and eucalyptus, extract from the globules almost exactly the same constituent as does the higher part of man's etheric body, and reject any superfluous atoms charged with rose-colored prana, which they do not themselves require. Hence, the proximity of such trees is extremely beneficial for people who are nervously depleted. The health aura, consisting of these particles ejected from the body, serves the useful purpose of protecting the man from the invasion of disease germs. In health, the practices are thrown out through the pores in straight lines, at right angles to the surface of the body, giving to the health aura a striated effect. As long as the lines remain firm and straight, the body seems to be almost entirely protected from the attack of evil physical influences, such as disease germs, the germs being actually repelled and carried away by the outrush of pranic force. But when, on account of weakness, over fatigue, a wound, depression of spirits, or through the excesses of an irregular life, an unusually large amount of prana is required to repair waste or damage within the body, and there is consequently a serious diminution in the quantity radiated. The lines of the health aura droop, become erratic and confused. The system of defense is weakened, and it is then comparatively easy for deadly germs to effect an entrance. In the Science of Breath, translated by Rama Prasad, it is stated that the natural length from the body to the periphery of the halo of prana is 10 fingers during inspiration of the breath and 12 during expiration. At other times, the lengths are stated to be as follows: in eating and speaking, 18, in walking, 24, in running, 42, in cohabitation, 65, in sleeping, 100. A reduction in length is said to result when a man overcomes desire, gains the 8 siddhis, etc. It seems probable, though by no means certain, that the halo mentioned is the health aura. The term fingers here means, according to the method of reckoning used in India, not the length of a finger, but with width. Both etheric matter and prana are very readily amenable to the human will. It is possible, therefore, to protect oneself to a considerable extent from hostile influence mentioned above by making an effort of the will to check the radiation of vitality at the outer extremity of health aura, building it there into a wall or shell which will be impervious to disease germs and also prevent the vitality from being sucked away by anyone near who has the vampire tendency. With a little further effort, a shell may be made impervious also to astral or mental influence. The question of etheric shells is so important that it will be necessary later on in this book to enter into it rather more fully than we have done here, where we are dealing purely with the health aura. The development of the spleen center enables the man to remember his astral journeys, though sometimes only very partially, the faculty associated with the corresponding astral center being that of traveling consciously in the astral body. Those vague memories that most of us have of blissful flights through the air are often due to slight accidental stimulation of the spleen chakra. It may be mentioned in passing that the astral center corresponding to the spleen also has the function of vitalizing the whole astral body. Chapter 5. The base of the spine center. The first center or chakram at the base of the spine has primary force which radiates in 4 spokes, making the center appear to be divided into quadrants with hollows between them, like a cross, a symbol which is often used to represent the center. Diagram 5. Base of spine center A. Normal person. Function of astral center, seat of Kundalini. Function of etheric center, seat of Kundalini. Appearance, fiery orange-red. Number of spokes, 4. NB Kundalini has 7 layers or degrees of force. When aroused into full activity, this center is fiery orange-red in color, corresponding closely with the stem of a dark red and orange vitality which comes to it from the spleen center. It may be mentioned that in every case there is a similar correspondence between the color of the stream of vitality flowing into a center and the color of the center itself. Diagram 5. Base of spine center B. Developed person. In addition to the orange and darker reds, there is also some dark purple vitality flowing into this center, rather as though the spectrum bent round in a circle and the colors began again at a lower octave. From this center, the orange-red flows to the generative organs, energizing the sexual nature. It also seems to enter the blood and keep up the heat of the body. A very remarkable and important effect can be produced by a person who persistently refuses to yield to the lower nature. By long and determined effort, the orange-red ray can be deflected upwards to the brain, where all 3 constituents undergo a profound modification. The orange is raised into pure yellow and intensifies the intellectual powers. The dark red becomes crimson and increases the power of unselfish affection. The dark purple is transmuted into a beautiful pale violet, quickening the spiritual part of the nature. The seat of Kundalini, the serpent fire, is in the base of the spine center. This will be dealt with in a later chapter. For the present, we may just note that a man who has achieved the transmutation just mentioned will find that sensual desires no longer trouble him, and when it becomes necessary for him to arouse the serpent fire, he will be free from the most serious of dangers of that process. When a man has finally completed the change, the orange-red ray passes straight into the center at the base of the spine, and thence runs upwards through the hollow of the vertebral column and so to the brain. A flaming cross is a symbol sometimes used to represent the serpent fire residing in the base of the spine center. Chapter 6. The Navel Center. The second center at the navel or solar plexus receives a primary force which radiates in 10 directions, there being 10 undulations or petals. Its predominant color is a curious blending of various shades of red, though there is also a great deal of green in it. It receives the green ray from the spleen center, that ray also flooding the abdomen, vivifying the liver, kidneys, intestines, and the digestive apparatus generally, centering especially in the solar plexus. Diagram 6. Navel Center. The primary force from the astral, the green, from the spleen center. Function of astral center, feeling general sensitiveness. Function of etheric center, feeling astral influences. Appearance, various shades of red, with much green. Number of spokes, 10. The center is closely associated with feelings and emotions of various kinds. The corresponding astral center, when awakened, gives the power of feeling a sensitiveness to all sorts of influences, though without as yet anything like the definite comprehension that comes from the faculties corresponding to seeing or hearing. When therefore the etheric center becomes active, the man begins in the physical body to be conscious of astral influences, vaguely feeling friendliness or hostility, or that some places are pleasant and others unpleasant, but without the least knowing why. The Sanskrit name for this center is Manipura. Chapter 7. The Heart Center. Having already dealt with the third center, that near the spleen, we pass next to the fourth center, that of the heart. Diagram 7. Heart Center. The primary force from astral, yellow from spleen center coming in, then to the brain and principally to center portion of top of head center, yellow. And B. The yellow ray permeates the blood and is carried all over the body with it. Function of astral center, comprehension of astral vibrations. Function of etheric center, consciousness of feelings of others. Appearance, glowing golden. Number of spokes, 12. This chakram has 12 spokes or radiations and is a glowing golden color. It receives the yellow ray from the spleen center. When the current is full and strong, it produces strength and regularity in the heart section. Flowing round the heart chakram, the yellow ray also interpenetrates the blood and thus is carried all over the body. It also passes on to the brain and permeates it, though directing itself principally to the 12-petaled flower in the middle of the 7th or highest center. In the brain, it confers the power of high philosophical and metaphysical thought. The corresponding astral center, when awakened, endows a man with the power to comprehend and sympathize with and so instinctively understand the feelings of other astral entities. The etheric center, therefore, makes a man aware in his physical consciousness of the joys and sorrows of others, and sometimes even causes him to reproduce in himself, by sympathy, their physical aches and pains. The Sanskrit for this chakra is Anahata. Chapter 8. The Throat Center. This chakram, the fifth, has 16 spokes and therefore 16 petals or divisions. In color, it shows a good deal of blue, but its general effect is silvery and gleaming, not unlike moonlight on rippling water. It receives the violet-blue ray from the spleen chakra. This ray then appears to divide the light blue remaining to course through and vivify the throat center, while the dark blue and violet pass on to the brain. The light blue gives health to the region of the throat, the strength and elasticity of the vocal cords of a great singer or speaker, for example, being accompanied by a special brilliance and activity of this ray. Diagram 8. Throat center. Primary force coming in from the astral, and the dark blue violet from spleen center, then goes to upper part of brain and outer part of the top of head center, violet, giving spiritual thought and emotion, and going to lower and central brain, dark blue giving power of thought mingled with yellow. Function of astral center, hearing. Function of etheric center, etheric and astral hearing. Appearance, silvery and gleaming with a good deal of blue. Number of spokes, 16. The dark blue expends itself in the lower central parts of the brain, while the violet floods the upper part and appears to give special vigor to the chakram at the top of the head, diffusing itself chiefly through the 960 petals of the outer part of the center. Ordinary thought is stimulated by the blue ray, mingled with part of the yellow from the heart center. In some forms of idiocy, the yellow and blue-violet flow to the brain is almost inhibited. Thought and emotion of a high spiritual type seem to depend largely upon the violet ray. The awakening of the corresponding astral center gives the power of hearing on the astral plane, that is to say, the faculty which produces in the astral world the effect similar to that which in the physical world would be called hearing. When the etheric center is aroused, the man in his physical consciousness hears voices which sometimes make all kinds of suggestions to him. He may hear music or other less pleasant sounds. When fully working, it makes a man clairaudient, so far as the etheric and astral planes are concerned. The Sanskrit name for this center is Vishuddha. Chapter 9. The center between the eyebrows. The sixth center, that between the eyebrows, has 96 spokes. In Indian books, however, it is mentioned as having only 2 petals, this being probably due to the fact that it represents the appearance of being divided into halves. Of these, the one is predominantly rose-colored, though with a great deal of yellow in it, and the other predominantly a kind of purplish blue. Diagram 9. Between the eyebrows center. Primary force from astral. Function of astral center, sight. Function of etheric center, clairvoyance, magnification. Appearance, half predominantly rose with much yellow, half predominantly a kind of purplish blue. Number of spokes, 96. The writer has been unable to find any specific description of the source of the pranic stream which flows into this center, though it is mentioned in The Inner Life, page 449, that the purplish appearance of one half of the center agrees closely with the colors of the special types of vitality that vivify it. This would seem to indicate that the dark blue and violet ray, which passes the throat center and proceeds to the brain. The development of the corresponding astral center confers the power to perceive definitely the nature and shape of astral objects instead of vaguely sensing their presence. The awakening of the etheric center causes a man to see objects and to have various sorts of waking visions of places or people. When just beginning to awaken, landscapes and clouds of color are half perceived. When fully developed, it brings about clairvoyance. The remarkable faculty of magnification of vision, or its converse, is associated with the center and will be described in chapter on etheric sight. In Sanskrit, this center is known as Ajna. Chapter 10. The center at the top of the head. This center, the seventh, situated at the top of the head, is somewhat different in construction from the other 6. It is described in Indian books as the 1,000-petaled lotus, though the actual number of radiations of the primary force is 960. In addition to this, it possesses a sort of subsidiary whirlpool or minor activity in its central portion, which has 12 undulations of its own. When fully alive, this chakram is perhaps the most resplendent of all, full of indescribable chromatic effects and vibrating with almost inconceivable rapidity. The central portion is gleaming white, flushed with gold in its heart. The center receives in its outer portion the violet ray, which passes through the throat center, while in its central portion it receives the yellow ray from the heart center. The arousing of the corresponding astral center rounds off and completes the astral life, endowing a man with the perfection of his faculties. With one type of individual, the astral chakrams corresponding to the 6th and 7th etheric chakrams both converge upon the pituitary body, the latter organ being practically the only direct link between the physical and higher planes. With another type of person, however, while the 6th chakram is still attached to the pituitary body, the 7th is bent or slanted until it coincides with the atrophied organ known as the pineal gland. With people of this type becomes a line of direct communication with the lower mental without apparently passing through the intermediate astral plane in the ordinary way. This explains the emphasis sometimes laid on the development of the pineal gland. Diagram 10, top of the head center, with the primary force from the astral, showing also violet from throat center and yellow from heart center, giving power of high philosophical and metaphysical thought. Appearance, central portion, gleaming white, flushed with gold. Outer portion, most resplendent of all, full of indescribable chromatic effects. Number of spokes, central portion 12, outer portion 960. Function of astral center, perfects and completes faculties. Function of etheric center, gives continuity of consciousness. The awakening of the etheric center enables a man through it to leave the physical body in full consciousness and also to re-enter it without the usual break, so that his consciousness will be continuous throughout night and day. The real reason for tonsure, as practiced by the Roman Church, was to leave uncovered the Brahmarandra chakram, so that there might be not even the slightest hindrance in the way of psychic force, which in their meditations the candidates were intended to try to arouse. Chapter 11. Discharges. Just as the dense physical body uses up its materials and discharges its waste products through the 5 excretory organs, the skin, lungs, liver, intestines, and kidneys, so does the etheric body use up the material with which it is supplied through physical food and the absorption of the vitality globule, and discharges waste particles in various ways. A chart of these discharges is appended. The result it shows being described as follows. Through the breath and the pores of the skin are expelled both the bluish-white particles from which the prana has been extracted, such particles still charged with rose-colored prana as are superfluous to the requirements of the body, and also the atoms from the blue rays used by the throat center. Through the excretory organs pass the emptied atoms of the green ray from the digestive system, and also, in the case of the ordinary man, those of the red-orange ray. Through the top of the head pass the atoms from the dark blue and violet rays. In a developed person, however, who has achieved the deflection upwards of the red-orange ray, the particles from this ray are discharged through the top of the head. These form a fiery cascade, frequently shown as a flame in ancient statues of Buddha and other saints. Atoms which have been emptied of prana become once more precisely like any other atoms. Some of them are absorbed by the body and enter into the various combinations which are constantly being made, while others which are not required are thrown off through any convenient channel. Diagram 11 demonstrates the discharges from the top of the head and other areas as well as the excretory organs. Some of the particles, when depleted of vitality, are used up for building or nourishing the etheric body. In addition to the above, the matter of the etheric double itself is also constantly being thrown out of the body through the pores of the skin, just as is gaseous matter. Consequently, persons who are near one another are liable to absorb each other's etheric emanations. The radiation of etheric matter is strongest from the ends of the fingers and toes. Hence, great importance of scrupulous cleanliness in these parts of the body. A person with dirt under the fingernails, for example, is continually pouring forth a stream of unhealthy influence into the etheric world. The physical emanations of the body, consisting largely of finely divided salts, appear to clairvoyant sight as multitudes of tiny forms, such as dice, stars, and double pyramids. The character of these tiny particles may be affected by loss of health, by a wave of emotion, or even a definite train of thought. In this connection, Professor Gates is reported as saying A, that the material emanations of the living body differ according to the states of the mind as well as the conditions of physical health. B, that these emanations can be tested by the chemical reactions of some salts of selenium. C, that these reactions are characterized by various tints of colors according to the nature of the mental impressions. D, that 40 different emotion products, as he calls them, have already been obtained. Chapter 12. Tabulation of Results. For the convenience and ready reference of the student, a summary of the processes described. Diagram 12, Distribution Chart, shows the image of the distribution starting with the sun, and at the bottom it shows the excretory organs. 1. Place, base of spine. Spokes 4. The appearance is fiery orange, red. Vitality received orange and red from spleen center, also some dark purpose. Region vitalized, sex organs, blood for heat of body. Function of astral center, seat of Kundalini. Kundalini goes to each center in turn and vivifies it. Function of etheric center, seat of Kundalini. Kundalini goes to each center in turn and vivifies it. 2. Navel. Spokes 10. Appearance various shades of red with much green. Vitality received, green from spleen center. Region vitalized, solar plexus, liver, kidneys, intestines, and abdomen generally. Function of astral center, feeling, general sensitiveness. Function of etheric center, feeling astral influences. Number 3, place the spleen. Spokes 6. Appearance, radiant and sun-like. Vitality sent out. 1. Violet blue to throat. 2. Yellow to the heart. 3. Green to solar plexus. 4. Rose to nervous system. 5. Orange red to base of spine with some dark purple. Function of astral center, vitalizes astral body, power to travel consciously. Function of etheric center, vitalizes physical body, memory of astral journeys. Number 4. Place heart, spokes 12. Appearance, glowing golden. Vitality received, yellow from spleen center. Vitality sent out, yellow to blood, brain and middle of top of head and center. Region vitalized, the heart. Function of astral center, comprehension of astral vibrations. Function of etheric center, consciousness of feelings of others. Number 5, place throat, spokes 16. Appearance, silvery and gleaming with much blue. Vitality received, violet blue from spleen center. Vitality sent out, dark blue to lower and central brain, violet to upper brain, and outer part of top of head center. Function of astral center, hearing, function of etheric center, etheric and astral hearing. Number 6, place between eyebrows, spokes 96, appearance, half rose with much yellow, half purplish blue. Function of astral center, sight, function of etheric center, clairvoyance magnification. Number 7, place top of head, spokes 12 and 960. Appearance, center, gleaming white and gold, the outer part full of indescribable chromatic effects. Vitality received, yellow from heart center and violet from the throat center. Function of astral center, perfects and completes faculties. Function of etheric center, continuity of consciousness. Numbers 8, 9, and 10 are not used in white magic. Additional notes on chakra number 1 in developed person. The one that's located in base of the spine, the spokes 4, the appearance, fiery orange, the vitality received, orange and red from spleen center and some dark purple. The function of the astral center and the function of the etheric center. Here, the orange through spinal column to brain becomes yellow and stimulates intellect. Dark red through spinal column to the brain becomes crimson and stimulates affection. Dark purple through spinal column to brain becomes pale violet and stimulates spirituality. Chapter 2 through 11 is given in the tabular statement appended. The same information is also given in the form of a distribution chart, which gives a synthesis of these processes in graphic form, from the emanation of prana from the sun to the discharge from the body of the particles from which the prana had been extracted. In a still further diagram is shown an outline of the human body with the approximate position of the etheric centers, the streams of vitality, and the other useful information. End of chapter. If you haven't done so, please do hit the like button. If you know of someone that is interested in this type of content, please do share it with them. Hit the like button, leave a comment, let me know you were here, and let's head over to the next video where we will be introduced to the Kundalini and the atomic web.